does not accidentally not happen. So,
Perfect.
because I know I touched the button last time, I must not have like just gone to the computer or the cloud. So that is my bad. My bad, my bad. We'll give maybe a minute or two for people to pop on. It's nice to see some faces we know. We hope
Yeah.
everyone's doing well and had a good summer and business is good or I've heard it's kind of hard right now. So we sort of go in waves of hard and not hard. It just depends on the week.
You always
And
got
I,
to work hard no matter what.
and I guess the property, the ones that sit there with crickets for 60 days and no showings, and you drop 50 to 100 to a 50 to 100,000 and still nothing happens. Yeah, those ones are tough. But yeah, do a couple more minutes and then we'll. Hi, Hannah. Did you find your cat?
No, she's still missing.
Oh,
Yeah, so just lots of chaos over here. But as we were looking around our neighborhood, I have a lot of homes for sale in my area. It's just kind of a crazy area. But my husband pointed out, hey, there's no homie signs up here. And I thought, I mean, in this kind of market, I'm not surprised.
I rarely see that anymore, actually, now that you bring
Yeah, it's because it was such a big deal, 5 years
yeah,
ago, maybe more, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
it was the end of the world for a lot of people, and now it's just kind of like gone away. So,
yeah. I buy Homey. For those of you who are not in Utah, we had a company called Homey, and they would just they had like all these different packages for people. So essentially, when the market was hot, it was like pay $500 and list your home with us. So Homey, and they had billboards all the way down all of our freeways, and they were snatching up a lot of business. It was hard to get your commission in during those days. So that's why it's great to work by referral or work by relationship because your clients are willing to pay you for the most part, right?
yeah,
They
you
know how.
call your real homie.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, let's get started. Thank you guys all for being here. I think you all know, mostly you know who I am, Heather Roxburgh out in Utah with Real Broker and co-founder of Be Epic Marketing with my fabulous partner, Kat. Um, we have Mike Lopez and Eric Johnson here today, and these are two very special people to me. I personally coach with them and have coached with them now for, I think we're coming on almost the second year of coaching. They've done like mass wonders for my business, for my whole team, and for our marketing company, Be Epic. They work with us as well, and they're absolutely fabulous. Our company's called Motus Coaching. And then Eric created, I think Eric was the creator of, but they also have a CRM called Circle Closer, and we use that. The agents on our team use that, and it's fantastic for like closing out your circles every day and just being really intentional about following up with your clients. So hopefully you guys will talk about that a little bit and tell people what you offer as far as that goes, because it is a great way to stay very connected. So but I will, we thought it would be beneficial to bring people on and do kind of a little bit of a mid-year reset. We just did that on our own team, and it was really helpful to just sit down and, spend a couple of hours and just really dig into like the goals we set at the beginning of the year, where we're sitting, here in the mid-year as we're, moving into fall, what worked, what didn't work, what we could change to make it better, and then what we need to do to just really get focused to get us through the end of the year and hopefully get us as close to our goal as possible. So it was a really good reset for the whole team. So we thought it would be helpful for you guys. So I'm going to let Mike and Eric take it from here.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire workshop, meaning we're going to ask some questions and have you jot down your answers for yourself, for your purpose. And then after that, we'll do we have 3 points of sharing, between now and the end of the year. So like we're midway through the third quarter here. Uh, and then we have the rest of the third quarter and the rest of the fourth quarter. And of course, real estate, there's no calendar when it comes to real estate. So your 2027 started whenever you got somebody in your pipeline that is gonna interested in doing something in 2027. So here's who we are, Motus Coaching, our story. Eric and I have been over 25 years, just about 25 years actually at this point right now, working together, helping brokerages and teams to win. We're passionate practitioners of and coaches of a real estate relationship marketing system. And we also, as Heather mentioned, we have successful software products, Circle Closer and Teamsy, which is in a different industry, but Circle Closer real estate product. So here it is, mid-year reset, how to finish 2026 with intention. Intention is one of those words that you see a lot these days, especially when it comes, what are you doing with intention? What's your intention? How are you intentionally focused? And that's the goal here is like, uh, not just what's going to happen in the with the market dictating what's happening, but how are we going to finish the year with intention of what's our purpose? What are we going to do that? And part of that is reflecting. So I'm going to reflect a little bit on 2026 so far. So here's the thing. Some of us are wired a little more thoroughly. Some of us are like, fire ready aim, like just go for it. This is gonna be a bit of a rapid fire, this first section. So we're gonna put up some questions that we're gonna ask you to answer. So here's the caveat. Do not write down the question, because by the time you write down the question, I'm gonna be on to the next question. Answer the question within your answer. Like, in other words, put the question within your answer. So, like the first one is, what is the one thing you're most proud of yourself for accomplishing professionally during the first half of 2026? So your answer would be, I'm most proud of blank. By the way, too, no overthinking. Just whatever comes to mind first. You can always add to it later. You can, if you think of something better, you can add that. But what comes to mind first? So this is not overthinking. This is like, okay, what comes to mind first when you think of what's the one thing you're most proud of? So go ahead, write that down, and then I'm gonna jump to another question here pretty quickly. So write it down. What is the one thing you're most proud of for accomplishing professionally during the first part of 2026? All right. 10 more seconds. And bullet points. Just do bullet points, whatever comes to mind. Next question. What could have gone better year to date? What could have gone better year to date? What could have gone better year to date? All right, next question. Where did you struggle to take action and why? Where did you struggle to take action and why? Where did you struggle to take action and why? Where did you struggle to take action and why? 10 more seconds on that. Okay, so some specific questions, three specific questions, not super deep, but can be considered that. Why did we ask those questions? So maybe some of you have done some reflection. And back up there, yeah. Maybe some done some reflection already this year. Maybe you were in another event or something. When's the last time you thought about that? When's the last time you looked at those things? So these three questions, super simple, but whatever you wrote down, consider that important. Consider that something that when we hang up and in the next hours and days and whatnot, think about that. But most importantly, as the next slide says, looking ahead. So if we look ahead, Here's some simple things. What are the three most important outcomes you want to reach by year end? Three most important outcomes you want to reach by year end. If you don't get all three here in the next minute or so, it's fine. But at the very least, as you look at the rest of the year, what are the most important outcomes you want to reach? Three most important outcomes. All right, next question. What is the biggest obstacle standing in your way? What is the biggest obstacle standing in your way? What do you consider the biggest obstacle to achieving those outcomes, to making things happen the way you want with intention for the rest of the year? Biggest obstacle standing in your way. Before we move on to the next question, there's no right answer, right? The right answer is your answer, whatever you put, whatever you believe, whatever you feel is the biggest obstacle that stands in your way. And it's interesting, when Heather did this with her group, with her team, independently, everybody did their own answer. Independently, everybody had the same answer for this question. And the answer to the question was themselves. Like knowing that they had to either navigate something or work something through themselves, that they were their own, getting in their own way, if you will. So again, if you didn't write that down, that's fine. It's no right or wrong answer. At the same time, I would encourage you, if you wrote something down that was an external obstacle, that's something you feel you have to move through, that's great. Or focus on that. At the same time, when we ever, whether self-limiting beliefs or anything else that we have that keeps us from achieving or moving forward in the way we want to, we usually can attach it to something that is something that we need to navigate, or we need to um, release, or work through internally. That's a very typical thing. So consider that if that's not what you wrote down. What is the biggest opportunity available to you right now? What is the biggest opportunity available to you right now? Biggest opportunity. Biggest opportunity that you have available. Last question. What is the one commitment you will make over the next 90 days? What is the one commitment you will make over the next 90 days? Commitment to yourself, of course, commitment to your business, commitment to whatever it is that you wrote in previous answers. Um, Can you make one more than one? You can do whatever you want. This is your business, your life. At the same time, what's one thing that you will commit to? If there's amount of consistency involved, if there's amount of planning involved, there's amount of execution involved, whatever that is. All right, before we move on, we like to be interactive. This is not a one-way thing. Anybody have anything that resonated with them or that had them think of something they hadn't thought about as they went through and answered those questions? Anything that you want to share or what was happening in your mind and heart as you've answered some of those questions? Some of you doing this for a second time too. So, Katie, anything come to mind as you were working through that?
Um, what was the biggest obstacle standing in my way? And I put time.
Mm,
So one of my goals for the last question is to put time blocks on my calendar for me, because that is always last on the calendar.
beautiful. We're actually going to segue into that. So I didn't even prepare to say that because that's
You're
where we're going
welcome.
next.
He's our ringer.
Yeah. Anybody else? Something pop loose as you were thinking about some of those things?
My answers are still the same, I
The
think.
same.
I'm the person getting in my own way. I've been very unfocused, not organized, just struggling to take action, actually, period. Many of you know I've had a lot going on in my life this year, and so that's created a lot of that problem. I don't know what I would have done to get around that in that time frame, but getting back on track is the problem, right? Like when you lose momentum with who you are as a person and what you know you need to be doing, that's the hard part is how to, like, you feel like you're almost starting over. So time's a good one too, though, because I feel like there's definitely not enough of that. And
Yeah.
focus was my other one.
Yep. Good. Good. All right. So we're going to shift from little workshop answering questions to Erica and I are going to share some content now. 3 points we're going to talk about here, and basically 3 shifts in mindset and heart set. If you're talking about finishing this year with intention, here we're going to offer 3 things to consider when it comes to shifting your perspective. And here's the thing: if you've already made these shifts, this is already where you're living, then again, how can you be more intentional? How can you be more consistent? So here's the difference. I know you've heard this. Let's go back to that slide. Uh, that you've heard the words mindset and heart set, right? And some of us are wired to lead with our head, with our mind, and our heart follows. And some of us are wired to lead with our heart and our mind follows. So regardless of how we're wired, there's no right or wrong, but understanding there are 2 different dynamics involved here. And for some of us, some of these things might be a mindset shift that we have to make as far as that. And mindset is about thinking and reasoning. How we think and reason, is really our mindset. And some of us, and some of these things we're going to talk about is a heart set shift. And heart set is about feeling, caring, and connecting. That's when it comes to that is like what do we do with those things? And so those 2 dynamics of our thinking and reasoning and taking action, but then our heart set is about feeling, caring, and connecting. So the first one we're going to offer is to focus on priorities and systems versus goals. Focus on priorities and systems versus goals. Focus on priorities and systems versus goals. Now, what we're not saying is don't have goals. On the other hand, there's been a time, I know certainly in my life, where I was taught to write goals and I was taught about goals and I was taught about writing goals in a lot of different ways. And the focus was about the goal. And I found myself, like many people I've talked to, is like coming back around and writing the same goal over and over again. And again, that doesn't mean that it's not a worthy goal, or it's not that something I couldn't achieve. And eventually, over time, a lot of things that get written do get achieved, right? We're taught that, we know that, and that's a truth. At the same time, coming back to like what Katie's talking about in Katie's world, as far as like, what does this mean on a daily basis? How do I take action and focus? If I'm going to achieve my goals, what does that look like? And so, if we focus on priorities and systems, then overall, if we're doing the right priorities and our goal is real, then we're going to hit that. And so I know many of you have read. If you haven't read, I would highly recommend um, Atomic Habits. So James Clear. One of the quotes I've quoted many times in since I've read it and since I've heard this quote is, "We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems." So when it comes to systems and things that we have, whether it's our time management system, whether it's our relationship building system, whether it's our whatever it is, looking at our systems is a great place to focus, because if you look at where if you're not achieving what you want to achieve, if you don't have the effectiveness and efficiency that you would want to have, then we can definitely point to systems not being optimized. And Eric, what we get to do every day is help people in their businesses objectively look at their business. We do what we call an X-ray. An initial 90-day engagement we do with people is an X-ray, and basically X-raying the whole business, looking at all aspects of the business. And we can tell you the place that is the easiest place to shore up or get quick wins is looking at systems and seeing what systems can be refined or implemented or eliminated sometimes when it comes to that. So systems is a very simple but not simplistic way to address your business and go, if I'm not achieving what I want to achieve, or if I want to achieve what I want to achieve by the end of the year and be intentional, then I'm going to take a look at my systems. So wherever that looks like for you, make sure you're being objective and stepping back and looking at your business objectively, looking at your life objectively, whatever area that is that you want to do that. Now, the word prior to that, the word, couple of words there is priorities. So here's where really the magic when all this comes, because if you have systems dialed in, but your priorities are not dialed in, then you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. And here's an important aspect of this is that I learned something a couple years ago that for the first 500 years of the word priority, there was no plural. For the first 500 years of the word priority, there was no plural. So what does that mean? What does that mean to me? What does that mean to you? That means that when the word was invented in the purpose of the meaning of the word, that meant that there was one thing that was important. Like there wasn't multiple things that were important. That meant that this was the one thing. This was the priority. There were no priorities. Now, we're in 2026. We're big fans of priorities. However, where does that break? How does that break down into realistically in your life and what that means? Number one is understanding your priorities. So if you don't have, priorities overarching, like the things that you wrote down, that three outcomes you want to have, the one thing that you're committing to the next 90 days, then you haven't clarified your priorities. Because in order to truly implement what you want to do, you have to understand what is most important. What's the most important? So however you write goals in whatever areas, if you do it in 5 areas, if you do it in 7 areas, if you do it in 3 areas, uh, understanding, asking this, what is my priority in that one area? What is my priority in my business? And from there outflows, okay, if this is true, if this is my priority, then here are the things I need to focus on in order to make that true. And so without that, without clarifying what is really important to you, what are your priorities, we're all gonna struggle with that. And one of the most difficult questions that Eric and I ask somebody we're working with that's hardest to answer is like, what do you really want? Like what do you really want? And it seems like a simple question, but when you dig in and you go, oh wow, like okay, I can think about what I really want. Well, I haven't done it because of this, and I haven't done it. No, no, no. Don't put dialogue to it. Just answer the question, right? And think about that. So this is an element of that of going, okay, what do I really want in my business? What do I really want in my personal life, my financial life, my spiritual life? What do I really want? If this is true, if this is the priority, then everything I do, all my systems, all my action steps, all my activities should align with that, should help me get closer to engaging that priority. What does this look like on a daily basis? This is where Katie's obstacle of time comes into play, right? Which is for all of us, right? We've been taught many time management systems or different things, but we've also been taught that you can't manage time, right? The time moves on whether we're paying attention or not, whether you see time well or whether, time is not something you see well in how you're wired. Either way, time marches on. Like if I'm productive in the next hour or not productive in the next hour, the hour passes. So we've been taught don't try to manage time, right? And here's the goal is my goal is to manage my priorities within time. So if I understand what my priorities are clearly, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, then I can then manage my priorities within the time that I'm committing to this activity. Or if I'm looking at the day, I'm going to start my day at X, I'm going to end my day at this time. And within that time, here are the priorities that I'm going to be engaging with. Here's where we see the most challenge because if you have a list of 10 priorities, number one, prioritizing them so that you know what the top three are is super important. Again, we've heard that before, but doing it is not always the easiest practice, right? So here are my top three priorities. What's the percentage of time that each of them is going to take? That's a question we don't ask a lot. We just assume, oh, that's this, or I'm going to plug it in here. I'm going to block. So time blocking is the real thing we're talking about here, right? And it's something we've all learned and know how to do. Priorities and percentages. So those are the two things I want you to think about, priorities and percentages. So what are my priorities and what percentage of time, what percentage of my day is this going to take? And the challenge sometimes is that the most important priority sometimes will take the least amount of time. It's just a matter of focusing on it for that period of time. And so understanding that and navigating that. So that's the challenge we're going to give you is like looking at your time management. A, don't try to manage time. B, manage priorities within time. And C, what percentage of time does this priority need, deserve, and the kind of focus does it have? Once you've decided that, when that time comes between 10 and 10:30, my priority is this, make that your priority. Make it go back to 500 years before and go like, there is no plural here. Like, this is my priority for the next 30 minutes. And whatever that looks like for you, if that means do not disturb on the phone, whatever that means, what's going to happen in 30 minutes that you can't take care of in 30 minutes later if you have that, if that truly is a priority, if that truly is important for that time period. So priorities and percentages, managing that time and practically on a daily basis, the night before, looking ahead, Sundays, right? All these different techniques we've been taught over the years, like utilize them. Look at the Sunday night, look at the week ahead. Monday night, look at Tuesday. Look a couple days ahead. And then this is where the negotiation comes in. There are times when those blocks need to move, right? Um, and you can move them. That's fine. If it's something is another higher priority comes into play, you can move those. Caution you not to do it when it comes to things doing for yourself or things that you're doing for your family is, because if you have something blocked out, you do have an appointment at that time. A client says, hey, can I do this? I'm actually booked at that time, but I could do this or that. Again, things we've heard before, but not always practiced, not always things that we do intentionally when it comes to taking care of ourselves and managing our priorities and honoring the time and the focus that we need to do in order to have that be productive for us and be super, super efficient, super effective for us. All right.
I just have one thing on that, a couple
Yeah.
things that popped into my head while Mike was talking about that, and I think this will probably apply to all of you guys, which is the recognition that the most urgent thing is not your top priority. It's just the most urgent thing,
Yeah.
right? And we push our priorities around because of the urgent things. Obviously, there's a lot of urgent things come up in this business, and that's where the time and percentages come in, which is like, okay, I've got these urgent things I've got to do, right? I've got to crazy stuff happening with this transaction, but my priority thing might only be a 10 or 20 or 30-minute thing. So keeping those priorities, even though there's urgency. And the other thing, just for me, connecting the dots is when you write goals, the first question is, what are the systems I need to make this happen?
Yeah.
So then you can then the goals in the background and the systems are in the foreground. So just a couple little notes on there, I thought.
Yep. That's great.
All right, the next shift is this one. And I thought about rewording this to be like one of those gotcha catchy words, but I'll tell you what, I was going to rename it. But the next one is this: planning relationship building time versus lead generation time. Planning relationship building time versus lead generation time. And what I was going to put on here was stop doing lead generation time. And then some of you would go, yes, I love that. I don't want to do that. I hate doing that. But here's the thing: we just want to shift your mindset on this. If you go, however you call it, some of you call it lead generation time, some of you call it income producing time, whatever. If you set aside an hour, you're making calls or texting people or connecting on social media, however you're doing it, you're not going to generate leads. I mean, how often do you do it and not generate a lead right then? So what happens is if that's your lead generation time and you spend an hour and you don't generate a lead, that you just failed at generating a lead. The point is where we miss the script on this is that we're not doing it to generate leads. We're doing it to build relationships. The leads, the referrals, the transactions, the introductions, those are the byproducts of the relationship. Does this make sense? So when we focus on building relationships, we always win. It's always a win. For the next 30 minutes, I'm going to build relationships. And I've got a strategy to do that, right? I'm going to connect with these people. I'm assuming most of you guys have some sort of intelligent CRM that will help you know who to connect with and how often you should connect with them. And so you don't have to spend a lot of time planning. If you don't have one of those, you can go to circlecloser.com because we built it to do that for you. But that time is for relationship building. And when you make this shift, it will change your heart. It will change your heart because instead of being something that you dread, it's going to be something you look forward to. Right? I'm going to go build some relationships. We've talked to some of you guys about doing things like, blocking a couple of appointments a week to have coffee with people. Those are fun. If you think of those as a lead generation coffee, it's not going to be fun, right? It's about building the relationship. So stop thinking about lead generation time and block out time to intentionally build relationships. And the byproduct will be leads. The byproduct will be referrals. The byproduct will be introductions to new people, right? Okay. And a couple other things I just want to kind of let you guys know on this. A lot of us were trained in the same ecosystem. And obviously, tactics change in this business, right? Mike and I have been engaged in the real estate industry of 25 years. Some of you guys on this call longer than that. A couple of familiar faces. I know you've been doing this longer than that. I will tell you just a couple of tactics. One is when you're doing your relationship building time, for the most part, texting is going to be way more effective than calling. Okay, texting will be way more effective than calling. There's exceptions. You've got relationships that will pick up the phone, right? But most of your database of relationships aren't picking up the phones. Have you guys noticed that? Yep. So texting is more effective to start conversations with people. So send them a nice text, and those texts are, if you think of them as relationship building, you don't need to talk about real estate in those texts. You don't need to ask them for a referral in those texts. You just start by making their day, just checking in. How the heck are you? It's been a while since we talked. Let's catch up. What have you been up to lately? Okay. Just connect, build relationships. What happens is if you do that enough, there's going to be opportunities where real estate comes into the conversation, where you will uncover interest or need somebody who needs a real estate advisor to help them at this particular time. But you will enjoy this time better. You'll connect with way more people. Even just making the switch from calling to texting, you'll go from a 10% response to 80 to 90% response right away. And then, as those chats, and by the way, DMing on social media is the same. If you're connected there, you can DM on social media. Those will turn to real conversations. You'll end up on the phone or at coffee or on Zooms with people or in their living rooms. But you start there because it's easier for you. It's easier for them. It's more casual. It's the way people connect these days. Even working with current clients, I would recommend often sending them a text saying, "Are you able to jump on a call real quick?" Right before you do it, because it's just kind of the way we're wired. So think about that. Think about just investing in relationships, connecting with people, creating that momentum with your relationships, enjoying that time with them. You will generate more leads, and it will no longer be something that you dread doing.
Go back to
Yeah.
yeah. So my take on that too is this is something we share with people constantly, is that as real estate advisors, real estate professionals, whatever your role is in sales, our job every day is creating conversations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where does business come from? Where does Eric touch on this? But I want to hit it a little harder, because if you think about if where do conversations come from? Where do leads come from? Where do opportunities to help somebody buy or sell a home, or to find out that they need a plumber or a roofer, that you can help them with? It all comes from conversations. Finding out what's going on with their families, it's going to come from conversations. So if my goal every day is to plan and literally put in my calendar, my time block, relationship building time, um, and I'm going out to create conversations, that's what the focus is. You have enough conversations in the course of a day, um, you're going to have, you're going to feel great relationally. Even if you're not a super relational person, you're going to feel good to get back in responses. But B, you're going to have conversations you wouldn't have had normally. And so that's where they start. And eventually, if it needs to get to a phone call, you'll get to a phone call. But a text is again way more effective, as Eric said. But creating conversations, think about that. That one takeaway is like, my goal today is to create conversations. What is the best way to do that? And then the secondarily is with whom. Now we'll go to the next slide. So the third shift is having intentional connection and pipeline strategies. So here's my top, all this stuff can apply to the quote I'm just going to share with you. And my top 10 quotes of all time is one from Samuel Johnson, which I still maintain is a long lost relative of Eric's. But Samuel Johnson says this: we need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed. Most of what we've shared with you thus far, I guarantee you a lot of it's reminder. A lot of it's stuff you've heard before. But anytime somebody says to us, or we've heard in the past at an event, somebody goes, "Oh, I've heard this before." And I'd ask the question, but how much of it are you doing? How much of it are you implementing, right? It's not about what we've heard, it's about what we're doing. So whatever this looks like for you, and if you read this sentence, having intentional connection and pipeline strategies, you go, "Well, I have those." And here's what we would share with you in terms, especially with the people we get to work with, and looking at what their strategies are and what they've been before we offer them, refined solutions or refined tactics or updating things, is a lot of times we don't have these in place and we're not doing them consistently. So what does this look like? This looks like an intentional connection strategy is obviously having relationship building time built in, dialed in, committed to that. having a system that then tells you and utilizing that system. One thing is having the system, the other thing is utilizing it, is who do you connect with? If you're looking at however you look at your database, whatever categories you have them in, if you don't have a strategy that daily shows you exactly who's up next, who you should be connecting with, and what level of relationship they are with you, then and you're not doing that every day, then you don't have an intentional connection strategy. And so that's the challenge. Again, we've all done this different times. Maybe we've been better at it than others. Well, we will share with you, this is a market right now that this is not an option, right? Having a daily connection strategy of who am I going to connect with and doing that in a way that's going to get responses, engagement, which is texting and DMing. Um, Again, and at this point for us, having done this together in this business over 10 years in this particular company, um, it's not theory. We can tell you categorically that this, looking at it from this way and approaching, connecting and creating conversations via text is absolutely works and it works very effectively. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is then who am I touching? Who am I connecting with? And most of you have databases that are not large enough to connect with people on a regular basis, or you've culled it down and you've qualified them to a degree that is eliminating a bunch of relationships that you actually have. And here's a quick litmus test. And again, you can do this on your own, but I would challenge you to do it, is to look at your phone and go to the lists. If you have an iPhone, it's lists. If it's not an iPhone, I don't know what it's called. But either way, look at the total number of contacts in your phone. And if that number is higher than the number you have in your database, you're missing out on opportunity for relationship building. Okay, we're going to leave that right there. We can go into a whole training on that, but we're not going to do that today. But just think about that. And again, you can take out 10, 20% for the pizza guy or whatever. But even so, there are relationships that you have that are worthy of being in your phone that are not worthy of being in your database. That in 2026, that makes no sense. Same thing goes for your social media. You're connected to way more people today than you were 20 years ago. Are they the same level of relationship? No, but there is a level of influence there. And they see you and they feel like they know your life and you feel like you know theirs because you see stuff. So there's a level of connection there that is far greater than what it was 20 years ago. So think about that. So connection strategy, if you don't know exactly who you're supposed to connect with every day, and you don't have enough people to connect with every day, and you don't know what frequency you should be connected with them, then you need to take a look at that system. Take a look at your intentional connection strategy. The next is a pipeline. And this is by far one of the greatest opportunities every one of you has. If you have a dialed in pipeline right now, and again, some people call it potential in certain CRMs. And here's what we call it in our CRM. We call it nurture. That category is called nurture. Why? It's not just a pipeline of future business, a potential business. It's a pipeline of relationships I need to nurture over time. And what we've seen very consistently, we've seen when we ask somebody to look at their pipeline, they show us everybody who is, potentially going to be active or has said they're going to buy or whatever, that sort of thing. And they're in there. Great. When's the last time you connected with them? What's your follow-up strategy? How often do you look at that pipeline and how often do you go from a relationship building standpoint? So a daily is intentional connection strategies. Weekly, bi-weekly, three times a week, whatever that looks like, is I'm looking at my pipeline. It's a different category. It's not my proactive connects of reaching out and connecting with people that I want to build a relationship. It's people who have said, raised their hand. And here's the thing. If anybody's even mentioned real estate, that's a person to put in your nurture, in your pipeline. Because why? It's my job to then go and follow up with them and connect with them and add value and find out how I can serve them. Or how many times does this happen? Somebody says, I'm going to be ready in 12 months. And 3 months later, they're going, hey, I'm looking at this house. Can I see this house? It happens all the time, right? Because of whatever. But if you don't have them in their pipeline and you're not having an intentional connection follow-up strategy with that, you're not doing it intentionally, you're going to miss out on opportunity. So the challenge is A, what's my connection strategy with my pipeline? What's my follow-up strategy? And we know it takes multiple follow-ups, but it's also you serving that person. It's not you bugging that person. If they said, "Hey, I'm going to buy in 8 months," and you said, "Okay, fantastic, I'm going to stay in touch with you," and you don't, what just happened? The trust dynamic shifted, even if it's subconscious. It's like, "Hey, they said we're going to follow up, they never did," and you're like, I don't want to bother them. Oh, they'll call me when they're ready. No, service, add value, connect. And then there's the people who are considering it. Somebody mentions it, put them in as a nurture. And why, when you're checking in with them, are you checking in with them to ask them if they're ready to buy? No, you're checking in with them to see how they're doing. You're checking in with them to see what's going on. You're checking in with to add value. You're checking in to build a relationship. Because again, trust is the name of the game, as we all know. So this is super important. And we have clients that we work with that if we look at their pipelines, they have pipelines that not only uh, match the rest of the goal they have for the year. We have clients who have pipelines that go into their achieving their 2027 goals already in terms of that because they have an intentional pipeline that they're nurturing over time that says, "Oh, here's what this," and that doesn't even take into consideration the people they're going to meet between now and that time, the introductions slash referrals they're going to get between now and that time. So our pipeline strategy is super important. We all know this, but how are we executing it? How are we doing it? How are we utilizing it? And are we using it as an intentional follow-up strategy to nurture and build relationships? So that's what we have to share today.
Actually,
Hopefully this was
let
helpful.
me
Go
chime
ahead.
in one
Yeah,
more thing on this,
please,
Mike, because
please do.
this is a point of passion for me too. I want to hit it. So when we ask somebody to show us their pipeline, they show us closed, active, and a closed, pending, and active, right? Which is 50% of the pipeline. And just to hit the point. So if you think of your pipeline as closed, pending, and active, it's the potential category or what we call the nurture category, which is the other, if you're doing this consistently, it's like 50% of your pipeline is in the nurture. And there is we're talking about mindset and heart set shift. So here's the heart set shift on this. If I'm checking in on you, how are you? How are the kids? Are you guys ready for school? Whatever, we're having a conversation. And real estate comes into the conversation. The second real estate comes into the conversation, there's been a shift in the relationship in that they're now looking at you as their professional real estate advisor. Does that make sense? So if they ask you a question about the market, if they wonder what their house is worth, if they think, whatever, they're now asking you to be their real estate advisor, even if it's just for a moment. Are you with me? So this is why now when you respond in any way as their real estate advisor, you've just made a commitment to them to serve them as their real estate advisor. So you've now made a commitment. So that's why we would now add them to our pipeline as a nurture, because this is somebody who has basically said, I want you to be my real estate advisor in so many words. So we're doing the same thing with them. We're checking in, seeing how the kids are, building relationships with them. But now we've set an intention on them because we've committed to show up as a real estate advisor. So this category grows of people who have kind of distinguished themselves from your other relationships because they have asked you to advise them. So that's the main difference. It's not thinking of listing in 2 weeks. Okay, great. You're going in my potential category. Yeah, that person should go in the potential category too. But as this category grows, as you're connecting with people, it gives you insight into, all of the people who might be moving along the spectrum of buying or selling in the next, might even be in the next 2 years. But you're staying in touch, you're connecting, you're their person, you're the person in their corner, you're their real estate advisor. So if you guys do that, you will see a tremendous amount of momentum. The other piece of this, last piece I'll say on this is it also gives you tremendous peace of mind because you all have moments where you're like, the sky's falling. I've got no closings this month. Oh my gosh, I still have to pay for my office. I have to pay whatever. And then you can look at that nurture category and go, well, but I've got $20 million in potential sitting in that nurture category. Like the sky's not falling. I just need to make sure I'm in touch with all these people. Let me work my way down that list and check in on people. So that will give you some peace in those moments because you guys know it's a mountain valley moment business. And it never feels good when you're in the valley. Sometimes you don't feel good when you're on the mountain either because you just want someone to put your hair out. To put the fire out in your hair so that you can catch your breath. But having these strategies, being intentional, and some of you are really good, about connecting with people. You go out to the grocery store, you run into three people, you're talking to people, and you're connecting with people. But that's still reactive versus intentional. So that's all I'll say on that today. I had to get that off my chest, though.
Ah, awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Any questions on anything? We want to jump off of here. We want to make sure we thank Kat and Heather for inviting us. Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure being here. Good seeing some faces we haven't seen in a while and some new faces for us too. So, and some faces that we get to see all the time. And it's a beautiful thing. Relationships are a beautiful thing. So, any questions on anything that we touched on or clarification on anything?
Hey, Mike,
All
I
right.
have a question for you. Thanks, guys. I jumped in halfway through, and Heather and Kat, thank you so much for bringing these brilliant minds to the collection here. What are you using Circle Closer to stay in touch? Because Mike, you're a genius at relationship building, and like I never wonder whether you care about me because you're always just you pop into my life, re- believe it or not, right when I need you. And it's just an advisor in my life, a friend who I've known for 20 plus years, 25 years. Holy shit. Excuse me. Like what are you using Circle Closer
We
to
use our own
realize your
product.
intention?
Yes, we use our own product for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
Yeah. And then okay, well, that could be a whole not did you, that could be a whole nother presentation, the Circle Closer and
That's
how
the
that
first one
can
we did. That's the first one we did last year sometime. So yeah.
yeah. Well, maybe that is that recorded? Is that something maybe that Heather can put in the show notes as a link or I call it show notes, but
Brooke, can you find that? Don't task me with jobs like that. I
okay.
don't know where to go. But
There you go,
Yeah.
Heather. Good delegation there. That's good.
Brooke will know.
Yeah.
It's extremely effective and I feel nothing but valued in both yours and Eric's world. So, thank you.
Our pleasure.
You
Our
guys are very
pleasure.
good at that. I would also say, like, well, I have a comment just
Please.
when you're talking about like intentional connection, pipeline strategies, and being consistent. I don't know how many of you know, Kat and I have a marketing company called Be Epic Marketing, and we provide the marketing side of that. So if you don't have a great marketing strategy in place where you're touching your clients in, I would say multiple different platforms, email, direct mail, social media, newsletters, that sort of a thing. We have an amazing marketing suite that we offer, and it's very, very effective at staying in touch with people. It's how I built my entire business and how I've been able to have clients that call me like from 20 years ago that I haven't spoken to on the phone per se, because I'm not really great at like making the phone calls. Like I throw a lot of client parties, and so that's my way of staying in touch with people and having the face-to-face conversations and not doing the phone calls, but the marketing does it for me. So, we talked about this when you were talking about just, making sure not to clean too many people out of your database. Mike and Eric and I had this conversation because I have a client who came back to me from like 18 years ago and wrote an email and was like, Heather sold me my first condo 18. He said, Heather and team, and he sent it to me. And I'm ready to sell and I'm ready to buy. And I would love to work with the Roxburgh Group again. You guys are fabulous. And that wouldn't happen if I didn't have those other touch points in place. So if
Yeah.
any of you have a marketing need, Kat and I would love to chat with you about that. We have some members on here. I saw Earl, you're on here still, Earl. Ed, you're on here as well. It's a really great way to stay top of mind with your clients. So just wanted to throw that out there. And I don't know if you have anything you want to include, Kat, with that.
I mean, yeah, we talked about goals and systems, and I feel like if you wrote down that marketing is a system that you don't feel like you have a good structure around, I think that's what we do really well. And I think it pairs well with Circle Closer in the sense that like we can handle and keep up with a lot of that content demand. I'm sure a lot of you feel stressed out and fatigued by trying to put posts out on social media, email your clients, do all of this stuff that needs to be done. And we have a team that utilizes AI as well as like, just we have our own content creation machine behind the scenes. And so I really view our job as like helping keep you guys top of mind so that when you do reach out and text someone or DM them, they know who you are because they've been seeing your marketing. They have seen your face. And so it's not like doing one or the other. I really think you need to have a system for both. And we can't replicate that personal touch, but what we can do is put together professional, polished marketing that's fun, creative, keeps you top of mind, and we can really be that system for you. So yeah, I mean, reach out to us if that's something that you feel like is a missing ingredient in your business that could really help take you to the next level, because that's what we're here for.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
provide you with peace, right? Like when you
Yeah.
say, I mean,
Knowing
really,
it's done.
truly, like I don't have to go into any. I used to, when I first got in real estate, I hated starting the year over because my number went back to number one. And I was like, oh, I have to do this all over again. And probably for the first 10 years, it was just like stressful and nightmares. And I hated New Year's. And then one year I was like, you know what? The referrals just, they come in because the system's there. So I say peace of mind is another big benefit of having a great marketing plan in place and having Circle Closer and just all the different touch points. So
Cool. Well, thanks
Beautiful.
everyone for your time. Hopefully this
yeah,
gives you something
thanks
to
Mike
think
and
about.
Eric. You guys are awesome. We love
Thank
you.
Of course.
And thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you.
Here.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Bye bye.